All right, diving into James B. Stewart's Den of Thieves today. So we're talking the 1980s, Wall Street, high-stakes finance, arbitrage, insider trading, big personalities. Ready to unpack this?
Absolutely. Yeah, this era, it's not just about the money, right? It's about the people. And Stewart, he really brings those characters to life.
It's like a financial thriller almost.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's start with the key players then.
Okay.
First, there's Martin Siegel, kind of a star at Kidder Peabody, known for his charm, connecting with clients, and this is an odd one, doing push-ups in his office.
Yeah, Siegel, his story, it really makes you think about ambition, you know? Like, he wasn't content with just being successful. He wanted to be the best, beat rivals like Goldman Sachs, prove himself in this cutthroat world. And I think that drive, it offers a really interesting look at the whole culture of Wall Street back then.
Right, because even with all the success, he still felt like he had something to prove.
Yeah, like an outsider, almost. And it wasn't just Siegel either. Think about Ivan Buchesky.
Oh yeah, Bookview-Den.
This was a relentless arbitrager, known for being a little, well, eccentric. This is a guy who dressed formally, even in his home office.
Wow.
Brought his dog to investor meetings.
Talk about making an entrance.
Right. But his eccentricities, they were matched by his ambition. He was hungry for wealth, and he pushed boundaries to get it.
It makes you wonder if that fueled the risk-taking, you know?
Absolutely.
And then, of course, there's Michael Milken.
Oh, Milken.
The junk bond king, known for, well, being demanding and spotting opportunities where others didn't, let's say.
Yeah. Calling Milken ambitious, that's putting it lightly.
Yeah.
This is a guy with an incredible drive. And his instrument, junk bonds. These were bonds from companies that, well, didn't have the best credit. A lot riskier than traditional bonds.
So higher risk, but potentially a much bigger reward, too.
Exactly. And Milken, he saw something that everyone else missed in this market. He realized these junk bonds, they could be used to finance all sorts of deals, especially these leveraged buyouts that were happening.
Okay, but let's back up for a second.
Sure.
For those of us who aren't, Wall Street experts,
Yeah.
What exactly is arbitrage? Can you explain it simply?
Okay, so imagine you've got a knack for deals, right?
Yeah.
Like you find a baseball card, some flea market, $10, but you know some collector will pay $100. You buy it, sell it, profit. That's arbitrage, basically, exploiting price differences.
So buy low, sell high, but with stocks, not baseball cards.
Exactly, but on a much bigger, more complex scale, of course. And instead of flea markets, think different stock exchanges, different markets, sometimes even different countries. And the key, speed and information. You got to spot those price differences fast and act before anyone else does.
And that's where the risk comes in.
Big time. Those price differences, they're usually there for a reason. There's always a chance that gap closes before you can make your move, or something unexpected happens, wipes out your profit.
So yeah, not for the faint of heart.
Not at all. And this is where we get to the heart of Wall Street in the 80s, this whole era of corporate takeovers. Arbitragers, they were like sharks, circling these deals, looking for any little opportunity to cash in.
Right, and there were some huge deals happening, like the Conoco acquisition.
Oh, Conoco. That was a massive deal. Multi-billion-dollar fight for control of an oil giant. It was really like the definition of this era of corporate raiders, companies being bought, sold, broken up, just a whirlwind of activity.
And arbitragers like Boldesky, they were right in the middle of it all, placing these massive bets on what would happen.
And that's where things get interesting, because that line between legal arbitrage and insider trading, it could get very, very blurry.
Good point. And I think a perfect place to move to the next chapter of our story, because as we'll see, going after those profits, even the legal kind, could lead people down some questionable paths.
Yeah, ambition is a funny thing, right? Like, you'd think someone like Siegel, with everything he had going for him, wouldn't feel the need to prove anything to anyone. And that's where the Conoco deal, it really gets interesting. It wasn't just about the money for Siegel, it was about beating those rivals. Goldman Sachs, especially. He even, get this, he tried sushi for the first time with a client just to land a deal.
Wow, talk about going the extra mile.
He supposedly hated it, by the way.
Oh, no.
But it shows how much he needed that win. And I think that need, that insecurity, it's part of what made him vulnerable to Boesky's offer, because Siegel's income, it wasn't always, guaranteed, especially with arbitrage. It's up and down.
Right.
And Boesky comes along, offers him a way to, let's say, supplement that income. A little inside information. It was temptation, easy money, but obviously not exactly legal.
And Siegel knew that, right? He knew insider trading was illegal, But he still, like, tried to justify it in his mind, even convinced himself he deserved some kind of, like, bonus for the info.
It's that slippery slope. Once you start rationalizing, especially in that world, Wall Street, those lines get blurry fast.
And the deeper he got, the more anxious he became. Right?
Yeah.
Relied on NyQuil to cope with the stress, the guilt, which, I mean, that speaks volumes.
Yeah, it does. And while Siegel's wrestling with his conscience, you've got Budesky, whose own past really fueled his drive for wealth. He came from, humble beginnings and craved that acceptance from Wall Street's elite.
Which is interesting because he was trying so hard to, like, invent a new past for himself, right? Embellishing his resume, his family connections, even renting a Rolls Royce and a limo just to impress Mulherin at dinner.
He really did. It was all about image. He wanted so badly to be part of that world, but always felt, I think, like an outsider looking in.
It's like he was trying to buy his way into legitimacy.
Yeah.
But that desire, that need for validation, it almost destroyed him with that city service deal.
Oh, city service. That was a close one. Boshesky bet big on a takeover that fell apart, almost took him down with a...
It really shows how even these, financial wizards, they can make huge mistakes.
Yeah.
Especially in a market driven by, well, greed, basically.
It's that fine line between calculated risk and, honestly, reckless gambling. And Boshesky, he walked that line his whole career.
It's remarkable he survived as long as he did.
Well, with city service, he had some help. Remember John Mulherin, the options trader?
Oh, right. The one who was, how to put it, a little less buttoned up than your average Wall Street guy.
That's him. See, Mulherin and Bohesky, they had this complex relationship. Friendship, business, loyalty, all mixed up. And when Bohesky was on the ropes with that deal, Mulherin bailed him out, took a huge position in the stock, propped up the price, thought he was doing a friend a favor.
Wow.
But Bohesky, always the strategist, he saw it as a business transaction.
Makes you wonder about friendship in that world, doesn't it? Where does it end and the business begins?
It's a good question. And speaking of complicated relationships, we can't forget Michael Milken.
Ah, the junk bond king himself.
Right. He was at the center of this whole thing, financing these huge leveraged buyouts, some of Bohesky's riskiest moves included.
Because Milken wasn't just financing deals, he was creating a market, right, for those junk bonds. Saw their potential even with the risk.
And he wasn't shy about, let's say, enjoying the perks of his success. Remember those Predators balls he threw? Legendary parties.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about those. Deals, fortunes made, champagne flowing, the works. Sounds like something out of a movie.
It was a different time, but beneath all the glamour, there was a sense that, well, this couldn't last forever. Something had to give.
Because for every brilliant deal, there were whispers of, well, shady business, insider trading, pushing the limits. It was only a matter of time before it all came crashing down.
And the catalyst for that crash, well, it came from a rather unexpected source.
It did.
Yeah, this guy Dennis Levine, relatively unknown investment banker.
Levine, right. Wasn't that the Mr. Diamond guy?
That's the one. Got caught insider trading, and his arrest, it was like a bomb went off on Wall Street. Because he was small time, but his confession, it dragged in some much bigger names. Bohesky, for one.
Talk about your house of cards collapsing.
Right. And Bohesky, he was looking at serious charges. The government, they wanted to make an example out of him. Offered a deal, though. Cooperate, avoid prison, but pay a massive fine and come clean.
$100 million, wasn't it?
No.
That's not exactly pocket change.
No, even for Bohesky.
No, it wasn't. But he took the deal. And that's when the floodgates really opened. He gave them recordings, conversations, all implicating others who were involved. Siegel was in there, and, well, Milken.
It's wild, the whole thing, like something out of a movie. Bohesky, wired up, trying to save himself by taking everyone else down with him. It was a huge turning point, because now the investigation, it was all about Milken and junk bonds.
Because Milken had built this whole empire on it, right? And suddenly, it all looked like it might have been built on, what, illegal activity.
Right, insider trading, market manipulation, the works.
Well, what did Milken do? I mean, this was Michael Milken. He didn't just roll over, did he?
No, not at all. He denied everything. Hired the best lawyers, PR campaign, the whole 9 yards. Tried to paint himself as a victim, even. Said the government, they just didn't get it. The whole junk bond market was too complex for them.
So he was the innovator, the one who was being punished for, what, shaking things up.
Exactly. But in the end, it wasn't enough. Too much evidence.
And Milken, he ended up pleading guilty.
He did. Several charges, securities fraud, 10 years in prison. Drexel, the firm, they were gone. Just like that. The whole junk bond era, it was over.
Just completely wiped out. It really makes you think, doesn't it? That ambition, greed, the whole system. Did anything really change, though? Or did it just like go further underground, become more sophisticated?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? What do you think? Did Den of Thieves show us a turning point or just a glimpse at something that's always going on?
It's a question we're still grappling with today, right? Financial regulations, corporate greed, it's all still there.
It is, and I think that's why Stewart's book is still so relevant. It's a reminder that these things, they have consequences.
Absolutely. Consequences for individuals, for the markets, for society as a whole.
Mm.
Well, that was quite the deep dive.
It really was. Fascinating, the cautionary tale.
For sure. Until next time, everyone, keep learning and keep asking those tough questions.